Party Popper, thank you for subscribing. Your support means the world. It's what keeps us going. Sharing powerful stories that move hearts and reveal truths most are afraid to speak. Speech balloon, if you've just joined us. Welcome to a place where every story is a journey through hidden truths, unspoken emotions, and endings that leave you breathless. Backhand index pointing right, still watching but haven't subscribed yet? Now's your moment. Hit that subscribe button, because what's coming next will pull you in deeper than you ever expected. Bell, and don't forget to tap the bell, so you'll never miss the next chapter that just might change everything. Right arrow, one click. One emotional journey. Come with us. Before his fingertips touched the back of my neck, his breath touched it. Beside me, one hand supported the wall. Slowly and confidently, the other slipped up my hip, and I didn't flinch as I arched back into him. I didn't refuse. Silently, like if I had already shattered something hours before, I allowed him to press all the way in. Everything else burned, but my bare feet felt chilly on the hallway floor. I gripped the dryer handle tightly. The sole sound, which seemed like a mechanical justification for my legs' tremble, was the rotating hum inside the machine. His weight, measured yet ravenous, slammed into me from behind. Every time I tightened, I could hear his breath change, and I continued to do so as if I wanted to hold on to the moment and keep it from moving. There was no hurry. No one muttered it. In total stillness, it was incorrect. I believed I was aware of my limits, until he walked right by them. He was younger. Not much, but enough that I could act as though I hadn't thought about him since he first assisted me in carrying groceries inside and joked about how quiet the home was all the time. I was 41 years old, married. When there was nothing left to fold, I started staying up late folding laundry, and both of my children were old enough to question why. He was a relative of my spouse. Even though he was about 30 years old, they continued to call him his young cousin. On weekends when he was in town for work, he occasionally stayed with us, took a nap in the visitor room, joined us for supper as if we were family. Like a ghost, stayed out of the path. But as I walked past him in the hallway with my hair damp and without a bra, I saw the way he stared at me. When I bent to pick up a lost sock, I noticed how his gaze lingered for an excessive amount of time. And I saw it, which could be worse. I didn't overlook it. I answered. If the one person you were meant to protect turned out to be the one you secretly craved, how would you respond? There was no choice. I didn't stop it, it was just a second. He pushed forward closer than anybody has in months, and I felt it. We discovered a calm, non-frantic beat, as if he wanted me to retain the tempo. He tightened his hold on my waist just enough to give me the impression that he had been anticipating this and had even visualized it. I realized I could no longer pretend to be lost when I unintentionally lowered my head forward and muttered his name. I wanted it, and I knew precisely where I was. I thought I could handle this kind of stuff. I was mistaken. When it was over, we didn't talk. After adjusting my shirt, I turned away. As I moved down the corridor, he remained still behind me, as if he was terrified that any noise would shatter whatever delicate bond had just formed between us. Or perhaps he simply wanted to see if I would turn around and want more. But since I already knew I didn't, yes, I would. Certain secrets whisper rather than roar. Silently. Always. You're not alone if yours continues to bother you. Please subscribe and like. This truth is also needed by someone else. As usual, I prepared coffee the following morning. The same scoops. Same cup. The spoon makes the same little clinking sound on the ceramic rim. My spouse sat at the counter, his lips slightly open as he scrolled through his tablet, as if he were going to say something, but he never did. I waited for a change, an accusation, a glance, or even a hint of mistrust as I watched the steam curl from the cup I set next to him. However, nothing appeared, since nothing had altered. Not to him. I was still the lady who bought him the almond creamer he loved and folded his socks. In his opinion, he never questioned why the woman had ceased attempting to start a sexual relationship 2 birthdays prior. But it all felt strange to me. The way the dryer light shone off the machine's side, softly blue-tinted, like a spotlight in a play I was unaware I was the star of, was something I couldn't help but think about whenever I looked out into the corridor. All night long, I could hear his breath echoing inside of me. The way he didn't talk, the grasp, the weight of his hands. Allow the stillness to envelop us like a guilt-laden blanket. What the devil is wrong with me? I kept asking myself. I was a family man. A house. A man who had never cheated on me, beaten me, or even yelled at me. However, he no longer actually looked at me. Like someone folding clothes, he touched me. Typical, useful, gentle. And I had come to terms with that, or so I believed, until someone else touched me as if I were the only living creature in the room. Simon was his name. All he had ever been was Simon. The person who assisted us in moving bulky furniture during the living room renovation was hilarious and pleasant. When my spouse was away, the person who mended the leaky faucet, the one who inquired whether I needed assistance with dishes after family barbecues. Too familiar to pose a threat. You're too near to ever be permitted to gaze at me in that manner, and too intelligent to be aware that I saw it. The problem is that the hallway that night wasn't where the affair began. It began a long time ago. It began the moment I got into the car and he looked at my legs for the first time. He held his hand there for a second longer than necessary after touching the small of my back to let me through the kitchen doorway. It began when he said, "You look nice today," in a tone that seemed honest rather than informal or kind. I hadn't heard such honesty in a long time, so it was risky. Furthermore, I missed it more than I wanted to acknowledge. I told myself I was simply bored, that I was projecting, and that I was being theatrical. However, like heat behind a closed door, the truth had already begun to seep into my flesh. Even when I was far from him, I couldn't shake the feeling. Simon lingered in the guest room that morning. As I was cleaning the kitchen counter for the third time, I could hear him moving around through the vents. As usual, my husband went for work at 8:17. After kissing the top of my head and saying, "I'll be back by 6, he took his keys. The door closed with a click. It wasn't until I heard his car leave the driveway that I started to breathe. Then I turned to face the entrance to the guest room down the hallway. It had a crack in it. Not quite. Enough to let me know he was conscious. I couldn't help but wonder if he was waiting for me to notice. I continued to watch, but I didn't approach him. I sat in the laundry room later that day folding garments that didn't require folding. It smelled strongly like fabric softener. Tidy. Harmless. My mind was already reliving the previous night, so I held on to it like a shield. Behind me, the silent weight of him. My lower back felt the hard pressure of his hand. He moved slowly and fully at that point, as if he were stealing something I was unaware I had left accessible. And me reclined against it, embracing it. How could a lady do that? The type of person who hasn't been appreciated for years. The type that, while being incorrect, seeks attention. Or simply the type of person who made a mistake but is unable to identify it since doing so would make it true. I didn't know the solution. I did, however, have the laundry. The dryer's sound. Simon and I had the dull hallway light that occasionally flickered when the machine turned on. Still at home. Still too near. Continuing to fold. I wondered how long I could act as though the quiet meant it was ended. It was not intended for us to get into the automobile together. All he had done was offer to assist carry the luggage in. I allowed him to accompany me because my back had been hurting. I told myself that it was sensible. Simpler, quicker. Not hurt. I felt it again, though, as soon as he sat in the passenger seat, closed the door, and the calm was broken by the gentle click of the latch. That change. That shift, dang it. As if gravity had a different pull when we were alone. Even when we weren't in contact, it seemed like something was pressing us closer. The engine remained quiet when I turned the key. Its battery was dead. Before I even turned around again, I knew. I grumbled that I must have left the lights on. He made no attempt to contact for assistance. He made no move toward the door. He only gazed at me. I made an effort to concentrate on the raindrops as they trickled down the windshield. Paths are carved by little rivers through hazy glass. We sat in stillness, the kind of silence that seems like it may shatter if one of us makes a mistake. He added in a hushed voice, "I didn't sleep last night." I gave him a quick look. He was staring at the dashboard instead of me, as if he was scared of my reaction. "I kept expecting you to return," he continued. My throat constricted. I remained silent. This time he turned toward me more slowly. "Did you wish to?" I ought to have declined. I ought to have spoken out. However, my chest deceived me by rising and falling more quickly than I desired, and my mouth remained shut. "You keep acting like it was an accident that night," he remarked. "However, I sensed your stopping. I accidentally chopped in too deeply. We weren't going anywhere, yet my fingers clenched around the steering wheel." "I apologize," he responded hastily. I'm not sure how to pretend like nothing occurred." I took a deep breath. "I do," I said. "For years I have been doing it." He became silent at that. I didn't move to start the automobile even when the rain lessened. I wasn't ready to return home just yet. Not to the home, not to the kind inquiries about supper, and not to the children's chore schedules on the refrigerator. I muttered that I didn't intend for this to occur. "The person I think about isn't intended to be you." His laughter was broken and dry. "Yes, all right. You're also not precisely on my list of acceptable people." We both took a seat back. Neither of us made a move. There wasn't much friction between us. Didn't yell. It hummed, low, unrelenting, similar to a river flowing beneath motionless water. And even though I knew it was fire, I found myself reaching for it once more. Little instances like that filled the following weeks. Quiet makes a mistake and enters danger. In the corridor, he followed me too closely. As we passed the salt across the dinner table, his fingers touched mine. I knew very well that my shirt raised just enough for him to see the small of my back when I reached for a dish from the top cabinet, but he studied me for a second too long. Every time I could feel his gaze on me, I did nothing to stop it though. We sent one text. Only once. He provided a picture of the light in the laundry room as it appeared while no one was there. Nothing was written by him. He was not required to. I deleted the picture after staring at it for over 5 minutes. Then I started crying, because what I felt was not erased by erasing it, and I felt guilty for not seeing his gaze on me that evening. As if I were no longer invisible. As if I were important. As if I still had something worth sacrificing for. After that, I tried to stay away from him. Made justifications. Spent more time outside running errands. Even when no one else was home, I kept the bedroom door closed. It didn't matter though. He was always present in the guest bathroom's walls, the gentle patter of his footfall, and the overpowering smell of his shampoo. He went by me again in the corridor one evening. He didn't touch me this time, didn't say a word. But I could feel his heat. A mere inch away, and I promise. Without requesting permission, my body leaned in its direction. The worst thing was that no one was seducing me. In slow motion, I was giving up. It didn't seem like temptation as he touched me once more at last. In my mind, it was something I had already said yes to 100 times. There was silence in the house. Not just silence without meaning. There is a certain quiet that seems heavy and cushioned, as if the air itself senses an impending event. The guest bed was meant to be stripped by me. After breakfast that morning, he had departed, cited errands as his excuse. No deadline for returning. So I opened my mouth. I entered, arranged the pillows, and ripped aside the covers. I paused just where his shoulders had touched the previous evening as I brushed my fingers over the fitting corner. His scent was still there. Mild soap. Something sterile, manly, and unflinching. I should have avoided leaning in. However, I did. I breathed him in. I heard the front door unlock at that moment. I went cold. His steps took their time. They were informal, as if he was fully aware of what he was getting into. It wasn't until I heard the creaking of the doorframe behind me that I turned around. He saw from where he stood, not arrogant, not a sheep, Simply conscious. I forgot my charger, he said. I didn't answer. After entering, he shut the door behind him. Not quite. Enough. Like a warning that none of us took seriously, that sliver of hallway light remained visible. For 5 seconds, none of us made any movement. Then he approached me from behind. Did you act like it didn't happen here? Quietly, he asked. My waist was touched by his hand, and I allowed it. I ought to have come forward. I ought to have declined. Instead, I leaned into the mattress and put both hands on it like if I were surrendering a battle I never really wanted to win. The back of my neck felt the warmth of his breath. Then the same pressure struck once more. Firmly on my hip with one hand. The other was slowly and purposefully following beneath my shirt. My knees started to brace tighter. After that, I muttered, "Don't stop this time if you're going to do this." I couldn't identify my own voice. He remained silent. He simply did as my body did. His jeans made a shuffling noise. The sound of my perspiration was louder than it needed to be. The sound I made when I felt him press against me and then inside me was also quiet, complete, measured, heavy. I tightened my grip on the mattress. He moved in an unasked-for beat. It verified. "I know you want this," they stated. "Don't you?" Every time I moved, my breath caught, not because of suffering, out of fear. Right after release, that was like hunger from humiliation. Not to kiss, he bent over my back. Not in a whisper, only to be present. Something in me that I didn't even realize was weak was shattered by that proximity. I suppressed the moan in my throat by biting my lip, but I was unable to stop the rush of everything I denied crashing at once. The shaking in my thighs and the tug in my core. It was not curiosity. This was necessary. Before my intellect could mount a defense, my body reacted, and when he tightened his hold on my hips, he thrust deeper and moaned under his breath as if he had been starved for years. I released it. I let everything fall apart. After that, I remained hunched over the bed with my hands flat. He took a step back. Modified, zipped. "Keep quiet." Nobody said anything. Our strained, irregular breathing was the only sound. Additionally, the door that never closed left the hallway partially illuminated. He said, "I shouldn't have entered." "Yes," I said in a whisper. "I didn't tell you to go, though." He paused. He added, "I wanted to. However, I also want to repeat that action." For weeks, I hardly nodded. I didn't look back. He left. Still trembling a little, I sat on the side of the bed and gazed at the spot where my hands, still warm, had been pushed into the covers. I refrained from crying. Not quite yet, because I didn't feel empty for that one twisted minute of silence. With my knees pulled to my chest and my fingers clutching the silky material of a shirt that wasn't mine, I sat on the closed washer lid. He owned it. He may or may not have accidentally left behind a simple gray t-shirt. I hadn't moved it anyhow. I simply held it, smelling it, as if he was still within it. 4 days had passed. The guest room has been gone for 4 days. I haven't flinched in 4 days since I let him take me. I stopped acting like I didn't want it 4 days ago. I couldn't stop recalling it now. 2 towns over, my husband had brought the children to see his parents. I stayed behind and admitted to them that I wasn't feeling well, not in the manner they had thought. Since then, I had hardly spoken to Simon. He was still there. Once stopped over to drop off something and remained for dinner, but we avoided him. Don't touch. No glances. Just innocuous chatter and casual nods. However, my stomach churned when we happened to cross paths in the hallway, when I noticed him reaching for a glass from the top shelf, and when I detected the little scent of him on the jacket he left by the door. Not with disdain. Out of necessity, and I was more afraid of it than anything else. I anticipated feeling guilty. I anticipated feelings of guilt, self-loathing, and an instantaneous need to purify myself. Instead, though, I simply felt broken, open to the public. It was as if someone had pushed a door through me, and I was unable to shut it. I had kept it a secret. Not my sister. Not my best pal, because you don't even completely grasp it. How do you confess it? He belonged to the family, not blood. However, it's near enough. He was younger. I feel like I should have known better, even though I'm not a child. Even worse, I didn't feel tempted. I entered there with wide eyes. I made no attempt to defend it. I just did not prevent it. I folded towels that night that I didn't have to. Just to hear the sound, I turned the dryer on and off twice. It lessened the sense of danger in the quiet. However, it was unsuccessful. Since he returned, later than normal, by themselves, he walked nonchalantly into the kitchen and murmured something that I forgot. I didn't inquire as to what. I simply gazed at him, and none of us moved for an inexplicable moment. His voice was softer now, as if it wasn't intended to be heard outside the threshold, but he added, "Can I ask you something?" I gave a nod. "Do you feel bad about it?" I parted my lips. However, nothing appeared, since the reality was, I didn't. Not in the manner I was meant to. I felt bad about taking the chance. I felt bad about what that signified. However, I didn't regret experiencing that kind of contact. As if I were wanted, required, observed. "I'm not sure how to respond to that," I remarked. He let out a breath and turned away. Then he muttered, "The sound you created is still in my mind." My heart pounded. A hot, sharp pulse. I tightened my grip on the cloth. "Don't," I replied. "Don't utter such things." He gave a nod, but stayed put. I felt the distinction between right and wrong blur, not disintegrate, as I stood still in the center of my kitchen. When he was this near, it always did. Finally, he remarked, "I think I need to stop coming by." I gave it a little spin. "Is it going to be helpful?" He didn't respond, since none of us was certain it would. Being close to one another was no longer important. It had to do with what we had previously allowed, what we were unable to reclaim. I stood in the hallway later that evening, after everyone had gone to sleep and the house was quiet. It was the same one he had shown me first, the same location. My hand braced the wall and I touched it. I shut my eyes, and I said in a whisper to nobody, "I'm not sure if I want to quit. Or perhaps I simply want to quit feeling bad about myself." He was unaware. Or perhaps he did. However, he never voiced any suspicions. He was the type of guy who could tell when the car's oil was low, yet he was blind to the shaking of my hands when I was pouring coffee. "What's wrong only if I said it first?" he said. That night, though, something was different. He examined me for too long after looking up from his phone. His lips opened as if he were about to ask a question, but he changed his mind in the middle. It had been over a month since we last spoke. No kiss, not even a quick one. It was natural, I assured myself, that long-term unions become less popular. The cause was that tension. But suddenly I felt like I was in the limelight whenever he glanced at me, as though my pores were leaking guilt. Like a fever, the reality lingered in my body. Simon as well. It was more than a week since Simon had visited. 2 of his texts had gone unanswered. "I'm still thinking about it," one person remarked. I didn't trust myself, so I didn't return for the other. It's not that I don't want to. I never answered. However, I read them repeatedly. It was meant to be over. It had to stop. But I still had flashbacks of that bedroom when I was by myself, like just now, with my spouse only 10 feet away. That corridor. The breath on my neck. I found myself waiting for footsteps I knew would not arrive while I watched the door, and I felt ill with myself because of it. I've had the intention of asking my hubby. With his eyes still on his phone, he said abruptly, "Simon stopped coming around, but did he explain why?" I felt sick to my stomach. I spoke in a steady tone. "Claimed to be busy. Work is becoming better." He gave a nod. Didn't exert pressure. Continued scrolling. I became aware that I could lie too readily at that point. That I had undergone a little but permanent transformation. I later stood in the corridor once again. The same distance from the rear entrance to the laundry room. The same spot where everything started. I made contact with the wall. I moved to where he had been, and I had a chilling sensation. I wanted to hold him accountable. In actuality, though, I let him entry. Each and every time, I left the door open in my thoughts even now that he was gone. I went to church by myself the following morning. It wasn't a routine. I kept it a secret. All I wanted was a quiet place to sit so my thoughts wouldn't be so loud. I picked a seat close to the rear. It was almost deserted. An elderly woman holding a battered Bible. A weary-looking man in his 50s wearing a wedding band. Everyone fell quiet. Everybody has stuff with them. I took a seat. I folded my hands. I shut my eyes. And I didn't beg for pardon for the first time. I simply sat there feeling the weight of it. Since I was aware of what I had done. Even worse, I was aware of my motivation. I had been feeling invisible for a long time. Not required. In my own house, much like a fixture. And I was genuine again for a single night, a single intolerable stretch of snatched seconds. Restricted. Wanted. Recognized.